Well, hello everybody, and welcome to our monthly Q&A episode of the Reiki Lifestyle Podcast. I'm here with Colleen
Hi.
and Danny,
Hello, everybody.
and we are here with a group of people. Like I said, this is our monthly episode where we have live callers. That's not the right live Zoomers, live people here that are here to ask their Reiki question. You're always welcome to join us in this live circle. It is one of those things that you can join us and ask questions and yet still remain kind of private or confidential. There's options that we explain before we start the recording in order to do that. So I know some people might get a little nervous about that piece of it, and we might be able to see you here in the group, but you won't be on the recording if you would like to ask your questions. Ask your Reiki or other spiritual questions than all the topics that we talk about here. So just a little more information about that. You do have to sign up for the podcast list in order to get that link monthly. And we do keep it very casual. So if you need to, join late or leave early, you are welcome to do that as well. So a few announcements before we get started. We are going to go into an invocation right away. It's been a busy morning. And so it's always helpful to bring us together as a circle and to bring the energy in to support these conversations, support this work. But I did want to make a few announcements first. We will be having our animal Reiki class next week when this is released. Let me just make sure I get the dates correct. We will be teaching Animal Reiki 1 and 2 on January 24th and 25th, and then Animal Reiki Master the 26th through the 28th of January. Those are the ICRT Animal Reiki courses. You get to have class with Colleen, myself, and Sue Strong, and we are 3 of the 4 authors and creators of the class. It is online via Zoom, and that starts at 9 a.m. Pacific time, and it's 9 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. It's amazing and wonderful, and it's Reiki for animals, tools and techniques. There is a symbol and an attunement to the symbol and the Tree of Life Animal Reiki energy. For us, it's life-changing. We hear that for many people. It's just a really beautiful experience. We do have a couple of spots left. So if you're interested, go to ReikiLifestyle.com, Animal Reiki, and the registration should be right there. Then in February, we have human Reiki classes, the Usui Holy Fire Reiki classes. We are teaching human Reiki 1 and 2 on February 7th and 8th. And that is with Colleen and myself. And then she is teaching Reiki Master, co-teaching with Sue Machado, right, Colleen, from Brazil? What date is that? Is that the 16th, 17th, or the 9th and the 10th?
Well, I should know.
Let me pull up your calendar. Yeah, me too.
9th and 10th.
9th and 10th. So she, along with Sue Machado from Brazil, are teaching Usui Holy Fire 3 Reiki Masterclass. And then she is also teaching a Karuna Masterclass February 23rd through the 25th. All online, starting at 9 a.m. Pacific. Is that true for your co-teach, Sue, too? Okay. All right. I think those are announcements.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and go into the invocation. And again, we usually do some type of a disclaimer or caveat. The invocations can go very deep. They're typically very healing. And so make sure that it's okay for you to be listening if you're doing anything where you're driving or working, cutting up vegetables or using knives, things like that. If you're able to just let it wash over you and listen and stay busy, that's totally fine, but they do go deep. So It is part of what we like to do here in the invocations, and also for those who have joined us live, and of course for all of you who listen later. Okay, so I'm going to turn my video off with that caveat of just pay attention. If you find yourself starting to get too deep into the Reiki relaxation, whoops, and you shouldn't be, you can listen to it later. All right, so here goes. So close your eyes, take some deep breaths, place your hands comfortably on your body. As you open your heart and receive. As you breathe in the light and the power of love by every name it's called. And the power of love travels in on your breath, flowing through your body, and reveals the power of love within you. As the love that your spirit is made of is ignited and wakes up. As you breathe in the light and the power of the divine mind. It fills your breath and flows through your body. And awakens and reveals and ignites your divine mind, your higher thought and higher consciousness, opening the field of possibilities. Awakening and revealing your authentic intuition, your authentic imagination, your instincts, inner truth, your inner authority. Awakening and revealing your insights, opening you to receiving your insights, clarity of mind, solutions, priorities, resources, practicalities, intentions, clarity on your unique path. And as you breathe in the light and the power of the divine heart. And your divine heart wakes up, is ignited and revealed. Your heart light shines in front of you and behind you and on each side, above you, below you, and within you. This is your spirit, your divine spirit and your human spirit, unified right here in your heart light. You are one light. This light, your light. And the light of the earth rises through you and fills your light, your vitality, your vibrancy. The heartbeat of the earth flows upward through you and beats in the same rhythm as your own heart. And you breathe in the heartbeat and the light of creation, of the infinite realms, pure consciousness. And the light from above and the light from below flows through you and is unified right here in your heart light. And your spirit ignites. And you remember now that your body is made of the earth. and gives your spirit life and breath. And this experience in your soul's history, at this time, in your lifetime, at this moment, this breath, your breath, right now. And the light of the earth rises through you, and like the tree of life, your roots grow deeply around you, and you receive from the earth the nourishment of the earth, the waters of the earth, and the minerals, the colors and the elements of the earth. And the air flows through your branches as they reach to the heavens. And the four winds flow through you, bringing the wisdom and the knowledge of the ancients. The ancient ones, the stones and the trees, the waters and the people and the animals. And your wisdom and your knowledge wakes up and is revealed to you as your branches reach to the heavens and receive from the infinite realms. Receive from the divine realms, realms of consciousness. And it's all unified right here within you. Your wisdom, your knowledge, your gifts, your talents that you brought with you into this lifetime from your soul's history. This lifetime, other lifetimes, ancestral histories, all the gifts and talents, wisdom and knowledge is awakening and revealed within you. Even though sometimes it can seem as if it's all hidden from your own view. Layers of life caused by the ways and worries of the world can hide it from you. Cloud your perceptions. And so your perceptions expand all around you to the beautiful beings of the light that have joined you. The Reiki energy is all the way around you. The light of the 12 heavens shining through you. The beautiful beings of the light, ascended masters, brothers and sisters in the light, enlightened ones of your heart, your beloved and sacred ones. Our brothers and sisters in the light are here. The angels and the archangels, the divine animal kingdom, and the spirit of the earth. And sometimes when it's all hidden from your own view by those layers and those veils, can cause you the great forgetting of who you truly are. Your soul is so very beautiful right here within you. And it shines through you today and every day with who you are. And so you breathe in the light, and the light envelops those layers of life from the ways and worries of the world that try to hide you from you. Sometimes from other times in your soul's history. Sometimes the layers and the forgetting is from other lifetimes. Some of it is ancestral histories. Sometimes your culturally created self through this lifetime. And so you breathe in the light and the power of love and the divine mind and pure heart. And your pure love, divine mind, and divine heart wakes up and shines through all those layers as the light of Reiki releases the cords and connectors and attachments from you, from any burdens that you have been carrying. Many of them don't even belong to you, and they have no right to have power over you. And so, through the authority of love and compassion, those cords and connectors are dissolved. The attachments are released from you. The burdens that you've been carrying are released from you, and you let them go where they can be healed. The burdens of healing them, the power they have over you, released from you, for you. In truth, it is your divine right to remember who you are, to be in your own power and authority and sovereignty. And so you receive that love and light. It awakens and empowers yours, reveals your gifts, your talents from your soul's history, other lifetimes, ancestral histories, the beauty of those lifetimes, the ancestors' knowledge and skills and wisdom and teachings, the grandmothers and grandfathers. And letting go of any of their burdens, but also able to hear their gifts, their wisdom, their knowledge to what is relevant to you today, at this time in your life. And your sovereignty is here and present. Your power and authority are here and present for you. In truth, you are an extraordinary being of the light. And at this time in your soul's history, you are here on the earth in your life at this moment, this sunrise and this sunset and this season of your life, the cycle that you are in, the path you are on. As you discover your unique path, it's yours. Letting go of all those ways and worries of the world and expectations from the outside world, and connecting to your authentic self, living your authentic life, being able to hear you so you even know what that is for you. And we invite it to all be revealed to you gently with love and beauty and joy and truth and grace, gratitude and blessings. The beautiful beings of the light are here, and the divine animal kingdom is here in a circle, the circle of life, and they invite you to come and stand in the circle. And as you stand in the circle, the beautiful divine animal kingdom all the different kinds that are here, including the natural world. Share their blessings with you, the love they have for you. You belong here. And they invite you to take your place in the circle of life with them, and they've made a space for you. And you stand in the circle of life and here on the earth with the spirit of the earth and the light of creation. Heaven is on earth, and you are a part of it now. As you remember, you belong here in the circle of life. And as you stand in this circle, the blessings flow through you. And blessings awaken within you. For you, your loved ones, your communities, and the well-being that you contribute to just by being you. You are already enough. You are extraordinary. And the remembering within you is revealing who you truly are, your authentic self, living your authentic life. Look inside and say thank you to you. As you come here to hear you, to listen, and to discover you and your authentic self, to live your authentic life, to know what that even is, to discover you and the depths of you and the love that you are, and all the ways of who you are and your personality with your gifts and talents and skills, and just your beingness. There's nothing more you have to do. You are already love and light and beauty and truth. You are your authentic self, and the light of your authentic self is revealed. So say thank you to you. It's that inner calling, calling you to remember you. As you breathe in the light, and together we say thank you to each other. Our circle is always divinely ordered. Those who are here live today and all of you who listen later. Beautiful circle of people caring about the wellness in the world, in our own lives and the lives of each other, the animals and the earth. We say thank you to the enlightened ones. We say thank you to the love and the light of the 12 heavens. Thank you to the love and the light of Reiki, divine compassion, Zonar, Halu, Hearth, Rama, Nosa, Yava, Shanti, Kriya. The blessings of compassion. Thank you to the enlightened ones and to the great being of the universe. Shine on us and be our friend. Thank you to those who came before us, the teachers and the ancestors who bring us their gifts and knowledge and wisdom. Since ancient times, the people have called to the divine in the heavens, divine in the earth, and the divine within to live lives of thriving and well-being and love and safety and joy. And those ancient ones have taught the students, and those students became the teachers to teach the students in a long lineage of students and teachers all the way to us, the students of today, calling to the divine in the heavens, the divine in the earth, and the divine within to live lives of well-being and stability and love for today. And on behalf of the descendants who come after, thank you. We say thank you to the descendants as we also listen on their behalf today and listen to them in the future as they call to us, those who came before them. And so we are honored to be here in the grace and the light and the love today. Light bringers, contributing wellness to the earth, the animals, the people. We say thank you to this solar system, the energies of the planets, and the universe itself as we receive universal guidance. Thank you. And so it is. Thank you. Okay. As I say, sometimes those go very deep. I thought had done so much releasing yesterday in the burning bowl ceremony, but I found there was more. So it's like, okay, I'm letting go, really. I don't always know what I'm letting go of. And it's nice that Reiki can do that for me because I don't always know what it is. And in fact, astrologically, that shows in my chart that a lot of times I don't know my emotions until I see them in retrospect. The other thing that I want to bring up that really has shown up all morning is the awareness that the frequency of blessings, the energy of blessings, is actually an existing energy that we can invite. And I've been learning this from Reiki about different frequencies, that they actually exist, because if we think of the earth as what we call the first heaven, and there is, it's a dual realm, meaning that we have higher levels of consciousness and lower levels of consciousness, that some of these energies, and I don't know how I think all this works, although I do feel like I have learned through our 12 Heavens class that a lot of these energies are created in the fifth heaven realms with the understanding from whatever it is that does the creating. So all kinds of names and beliefs around what that is. But energies like blessings, peace, gratitude, joy, in the realms where they are non-dual realms, meaning there's only love, there's only joy, there's only blessings, then in those realms, those are not needed. So through creation consciousness, there's awareness that these frequencies actually need to exist here. And it's part of what Reiki can do is tap into those frequencies and wake them up within us, because the energies themselves exist within our bodies. They exist within our soul. They exist within our mind. And as we know, because we live in the first heaven where it is dual realms, that experiences of life can hide it all from us, can hide our experience of blessings. It can be the reality that we experience, sometimes for lengths of time, sometimes for short periods of time. Gratitude is one of the first ones that really taught me about the awareness that I could receive gratitude even when I didn't feel it. Like I didn't have to earn it and work so hard for it. That Reiki could actually wake up that energy of gratitude that I'm actually made of and heal the things that limit it or block it, or places where maybe I resist it or don't see it for myself or struggle to find it. So today I've done sessions before we started this with clients. And it's always interesting to me because, of course, I never know what Reiki is going to bring in for each client and how that's going to work. And today, the energy of blessings came in so powerfully to really understand that it's an existing energy that Reiki can provide for us, and we can simply invite receiving of them. And because we work with enlightened beings, and particularly some that we call in the soul realms of the brothers and sisters in the light, I really will be shown how those sisters in the light can bring in that divine feminine energy of receiving. And so we can actually invite receiving of some of these frequencies that we want. And we have names for them, like blessings, like gratitude or joy. Balance is another one. And so I've learned that what I can do with that, because I don't always understand it, I definitely don't understand it. I'm understanding it more since it's been shown to me over time, and I definitely say yes to receiving blessings. But I even had a hard time with the word itself. Like I even had resistance to the word itself. So in saying yes to it and being aware that it's something that, yeah, I definitely want blessings in my life, in all the areas of my life, that let the energy of Reiki come in and actually heal any limitations, blocks, resistances to it, any places where it hasn't been my reality or experience of life, and not to negate those experiences or realities of my life, but to invite it in here now and let it do the work for me, to allow the energy to come in and do that work for me. Because so much of the time it's I don't know what it's even about, to where I could direct it, for instance. I mean, I know some of the ones that are obvious for me, but some of them are not obvious. So what I can do is say yes to the receiving of them. I use the Reiki energies to do that. Whatever ones you work with will do this work. And some of them have some specifics. For sure, the distance symbol, I feel like, is a big one for that. For those of you that work with Holy Fire energy is very much about that kind of higher frequencies of understanding about them too, igniting them within me. So to make what I have said as a long story into something short, just simply invite Reiki to receive blessings and then set it as an intention and let it go, other than to remember that you invite it. And then ask Reiki to help you notice it so that it shows up in your conscious awareness of them being present. And sometimes they're really little things. And then sometimes they're the big ahas. And allowing it to show you that, and then also that it bring to you insights. So that's the other thing that Reiki can do. And we talk about it in our Next Step in 12 Heavens class, and in these courses that we do in our distance Reiki shares, that so much of what we're doing is not about specifically what we're doing today, right now. It's about that the Reiki energy opens that doorway of consciousness within you that invites those insights to come in wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Those, light bulb moments, we might call them. We might call them insights, or we might call them the aha moment. And again, sometimes they're really practical. Sometimes they're, efficient. Right now, I really need efficiency. Like, I still haven't taken Christmas down, for instance. So I really need efficiency. And so it could be something as like the blessings of that or the insights around it. But then other times they're the big, profound, like, oh, that's what that meant. Or, oh, that's what that blessing was. Or, oh, that's the blessing that's happening right now, or the blessing I'm asking for. Because sometimes I don't even know what that is. So anyway, just invite the Reiki energy to receive blessings, however that works for you, because so much of it is just simply saying yes to it. Just saying yes, inviting it. And you've probably already done that just by listening today and the invocation that just happened. And Lynn said, I like to have the understanding come easy. Thank you. Yes, easy, gentle, insightful, fun, helpful, beneficial in ways that comes in for us. So anyway, that's what just came through to talk about this morning. And so, Robyn, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and get into our questions. So, Kaz said she has a couple of whoppers for us. So go ahead, Kaz.
All right. According to evolution, we come from ocean water bugs, monkeys, apes, whatever. Along that line, we become aware of how to do things. The question is, when does our soul or consciousness begin?
It's a great question. And I think that it's one that we all have to kind of explore for ourselves. I also think that it's, from I think what we've all explored and experienced, it's before conception, because we mostly in this work explore our soul, spirit outside of our body, right? When we're doing past life work, when we're doing life in other realms of consciousness, we can experience that outside of our physical body, our human body. And as far as kind of your question in the realm of evolution, the awareness that you're speaking of to me would be, well, what does that mean? Because is the awareness of where we started from, it's just different than human awareness, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't have its own awareness. And I don't know, these questions of when we have, do we have the past life memory of those different forms? I know many of us have experienced ourselves in different forms, whether that's an animal, a plant, or something from a different realm, such as a star seed or an angelic being. We can remember those lifetimes, or remember that form, or explore how we were in those forms. So, could you explore the different forms of potential human evolution? Maybe if you had taken that form in a past life. So I think that's an exploration that we each have to have and come to our own understanding of, because maybe our soul or our spirit didn't come to this planet until we were in human form. So it's all also our different kind of souls choices, or however you want to think about that, however your belief system is, whether it's a choice or not, whatever your belief system is, that we may have decided to only come here as a human. And also maybe we do have an memory of when we were in a primate body. So it's really one of those explorations that I think that each of us have to take, and each of us also are going to have our own soul's memory of it. Maybe during that process, we were in starseed form and we just dropped into the human form this lifetime, right? I know many people have that experience, or recent lifetimes. I know many people have that experience. Or other people have had the experience of being in a certain animal form. So it is also, that's an exploration. And then there's also different belief systems around that question as well. So I think that that's an exploration too, that we all have to come to our own answers around. But that you can also ask those questions, right? Ask the Reiki energy, ask when you're in a journey, ask that question, see what it shows you, because my answer might be from my own experience and my own exploration, but that doesn't mean it's the right one, right? It doesn't mean it's the only one. It doesn't mean that it is what you should or have to believe. I don't believe in the being the authority in that. I think that we get to all have our own explanation and exploration of how that works.
Well, you did say it was Q&A.
I know. I think it's great. It doesn't mean that I don't love the conversations. I think many of us that are here are love these conversations. That's a part of the reason that we're in these circles, because we get to ask these questions and talk about these things in where, how would I be able to talk about those things in different circles? Not everybody is going to be open to talking about it. And also there's going to be circles where they for sure have the answers, whether that's from the perspective of straight on evolution or straight creationism, right? Like there's those absolute.
It's so confusing.
Yeah. So
it's just too much.
yeah. Colleen, I don't know if you have additional insights to that you'd like.
Well, it's such an interesting conversation too. And I heard the question differently than you heard it. And
Oh, interesting.
yeah, really interesting to hear how you heard it and how you answered it. Because my first thought is, well, that is a loaded question.
They always are. I mean, where do I come up with this stuff?
And because what Robyn was saying at the end of it, of her conversation with it, with, you have people with very definite beliefs around that question. And I just am the type that I don't believe that. I mean, I know what I think and what my experience is with Reiki, what Reiki has shown me, and I can share that. But I'm definitely saying I do not have the ultimate answers and authority.
No, I don't think anybody does, but
that's what I think, because I don't think anybody does.
I'm also hearing that we come from alien beings, that our DNA was changed or whatever. And then I'm also hearing about stuff that some of the medicines that we take are changing our DNA. I mean, come on, leave me alone with this DNA stuff.
Well, it's also about what you are interested in exploring, Kaz, because not everybody's going to be interested in that exploration. And some people are going to have the, that they have their absolute, their absolute knowing of how it all works. And that's okay too. I mean, we know that evolution exists, right? Because we've seen it. It's been proven in generations. I mean, just go back to the finches, right? So we know that it exists, and we know that epigenetics exist, and that we can shift and change genes based on the different things. And then you're going to have people that are going to have that absolute thought that we did come from aliens, and that splicing of the DNA with a primate, that theory, and they've experienced that, and and then we're going to have the idea that people, it's like, that creation idea. And so it is for us to explore. I definitely am not going to get into the idea of an absolute idea around it, and especially here on this platform, because as all of you know, that we definitely keep this a kind of safe space away from absolutionism,
right.
With everything, and just more around the idea of the exploration for you, and also what interests you, and what is the calling to your heart and your ideas around that, and curiosity. Jess and Taylor putting what is human, great question for Pluto and Aquarius. And these bigger questions, I think, are great exploration. And then also, it is also nice to be in a safe space where you can talk about your curiosity within it. And that, we try to also keep these spaces as judgment free as possible around it, because it is also something that, Colleen and I really believe in, is the safe space for kind of everybody to, I mean, obviously within parameters, but, so it's an interesting one. And follow where it takes you. Honestly, like, follow where it takes you, explore the different ideas around it, aliens, evolution, creation, follow your ideas and see where it takes you and your curiosity.
I also did text Giorgio Tsoukalos from Ancient Aliens. I haven't heard back yet. Boy.
Well,
have I got stuff for him.
That answer is always, it's aliens. So, you also have to take some of those things with a grain of salt. I'm not saying that he's wrong. I'm just saying.
But somehow I believe that.
could it be? It's aliens. Everything's aliens. So, well, then if you
I
believe
know.
that,
Reminds me of a meal in Egypt. So I just got back from Egypt, and of course, in the ancient Egyptians, definitely we come from the stars, and you can see it in the hieroglyphs and the way that things are positioned,
Anunnaki.
things are made. And Emil, our archaeologist, anthropologist, Egyptologist, he would tell us what the story was, but then he would say, but now use your imagination. What do you think is true here? And so I want to bring it around to a certain, like what we've kind of been talking about is, I think what we talk about so much in the way we do our work and how we try to help others do their work is by giving you the tools and how to use Reiki to discover your inner authority around these topics. So for myself, I have very definite experiences that I would answer this question to. And I'll share just a few of them. But at the same time, that's my experience.
Mhm.
And I so completely believe this is what Robyn is saying, is find your own inner truth, your own inner authority. And the Reiki energy takes you in. If you even think of the invocation, it was taking you into your inner truth, like what's true for you. So in my experience, like what does the word alien mean? So right now we have movie versions of aliens, but do beings exist from other realms, dimensions,
Yes.
planets? I have absolutely seen that in my Reiki sessions with my clients. And Kaz, specifically, it's one of the reasons we teach what we teach in the next step classes. How do you observe some of these things? And a lot of times by working with other people is how you can observe it. So I have seen people come from realms that I would call galactic realms, that they most recently, their soul's journey came from there, and they live here as human beings now, today. We meet a lot of them in these groups. They can be called star seeds. I also meet people who come from angelic realms that are incarnate angels, again, still being human. And people don't know that about themselves typically. And it doesn't mean they act that way or believe that way. It's what comes through them in their consciousness. I've experienced souls that have recently come from the fairy realms and the earth realms. And you find them in there are some definite commonalities with how they are living with human consciousness, because we are all souls being human right now. And so we have human consciousness, we have human spirits, and we live on the earth, which is a dual realm. So we all live in this realm. And the realm really is about, there's a lot of forgetting and a lot of remembering.
Yeah, a lot of dealing with being human.
Dealing with being human. And in the 21st century, today. And so I've also seen, I'm very careful with this answer because, when do we enter the body? I've seen our souls enter at conception. I've seen our souls enter in the womb. I've seen our souls enter in first breath. And I've seen our souls enter after, our body has already been born, and we enter after it. Controversial statement. right there. So I
Right.
try to
Yeah.
be careful with it because I'm not the authority. I don't know. And then, you have to be careful because it can turn political about that discussion, which
Right.
I don't mean. It's just experiencing that I've seen in sessions. And I've seen where people have fragmented from their bodies and their souls have been outside of them, and we can bring them back in. So our soul's journey, what if you go back to the invocation and you go back to what we talk about a lot, is our souls have a history. And our history can be other lifetimes on the earth as human beings, other lifetimes on the earth. I have definitely been a horse. I'm very aware of having been a horse. I am very aware of, even as I say it, it's like that heartbeat, that hoof beat is a sound I can always hear.
That's amazing. That's great. That is
I
really
also am
great.
very aware I've been on earth a lot and saw that when I was in Egypt, when I was in the Great Pyramid, and we were in ceremony and I was taken out into the stars, and it was like an astro travel where I was so embodied, and I turned and looked at the earth, and I just had this overwhelming love for the earth and humanity, and shown how I come here lifetime after lifetime. But I'm not always a human being. I can come in as other things.
Well, I know that right now, you as a human, you're doing big things.
Yeah, thank you. I hope, to me, what if I could convey anything we are trying to teach, it's what was Robyn was talking about, was finding your own inner truth.
Yeah.
Because none of us know. Even if we, think we know, it's like, do we really? But there again,
Probably
that's my
not.
belief. A person who knows
Right.
what they know, that's their belief, and I can't negate that either. I do have to tell you, I will tell you real quickly. Well, maybe not. When I did my very first shamanic journey, the first thing I did was journeyed to Jesus to see if I was in trouble for following this path.
Oh, no. And what'd he say? No.
He laughed. He's like, "You're good."
He's a comedian. I'm
Well,
trying to get closer to him.
I was raised Catholic. I always had a relationship with Jesus, with Mother Mary, some of the saints, Mary's mother. I definitely, I still have those relationships. And so much of the time he'll just, when I ask him those questions, he'll say, "Well, I never said that." I was like, okay, good. Because to me, it was like, boy, if I'm wrong and I'm not supposed to explore these ways, there are some serious consequences, like, eternal consequences. So I'm like, I'm checking in. I'm going to the source right here.
Go
right
to the source. Exactly. Exactly. So, I'm still trying to get closer to him, because as a kid, I was like, I don't know what happened back then when I was a kid, but I thank you and I thank Reiki for changing, a lot of my thought patterns that are like, oh, and then not to mention, with this A Course in Miracles, that's a whole new story.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm only in 10 and I'm like, really?
I think this is such a neat conversation, and we are having comments in the chat around it too that are really, neat. And I think probably too, one of the things that would be so helpful around this is that allowing also, as Colleen was saying, Reiki to come in and help support these conversations in a peaceful way, which I know we're having here. I think that is one of the places that has been challenged, is that we are so, as I kind of said, absolute about it. And as Colleen said earlier, it's not, I don't even, if somebody absolutely believes them, I don't know if I'm right. So, that's okay that they, to a degree, that they have that, but I wish that we could get to more of a place where Reiki can come in and support discourse around it, right? That we can have these conversations based in love, based in respect with each other. And that's, I think, what so many of us too are trying to anchor in with Reiki on the planet, is trying to anchor in that maybe that we can come to more understandings of it through love for our fellow human. We're all, we're human in this lifetime, and being able to, come to that releasing of that outside authority around it. And so I think that is also another piece of that, is that I think if we can have these conversations with more skilled discourse, if we can have these conversations anchored in love and be able to talk about them a bit, and maybe not in these kind of larger platforms, because that can be challenging, but maybe in the kind of smaller groups. Because when you're in larger platforms like this, where we have a bunch of people here, it can be a little harder, or like social media, for example, context can be challenging. Somebody might not feel comfortable speaking or have the chance to speak, which can be challenging. And so, but if we can get to these ways and where we can have these conversations anchored in love, that and this idea of Reiki, that we can maybe come to more peaceful understanding with each other. It says the peace grids say, right, may the followers of the world's religions work together to create peace among all people on earth.
That would be a blessing.
Yeah. And so I think that that's another place that we can bring Reiki in for this, for these questions, for these conversations, because they are interesting conversations. I think so many of us in spirituality like to have these conversations from all of our different perspectives around, or how we got to the end point, whether it's Reiki, whether it's shamanism, whether it's plant medicine, whether it's, all of these different viewpoints around it. And within, like, well, here's what I've experienced. Here's my belief system, and have these conversations anchored in love and acceptance. That's another place that Reiki can really help it. Because if we can start here, maybe it can ripple out, further, just by bringing that energy onto the planet. Maybe it can ripple out further to places and people that need
that would be great.
That anchoring of love and acceptance in their conversations, because I do think that it is common in a lot of these places, and it's not so common in other places. So
outrageous.
Kelly,
Amazing.
before we move on, did you have a comment or a question? Thank you for being patient about this subject.
It's kind of like somewhat of a both, and I think Colleen touched on it a bit, because the way the question came across to me was like about consciousness in the physical body versus consciousness as a whole. And I guess, again, that, as you say, it depends on your beliefs. Like, for instance, I'm a Christian, but I'm also a biologist, so, and have done my have been on my spiritual journey. So, like, for me, consciousness is beyond physical body. Like, consciousness is independent of that. So, as the question is being asked, I was kind of getting confused as to consciousness in general or physical body. But it's a case where, I like that we do have these forums for having these discussions and people feeling safe to have these discussions. I find often as a Reiki teacher, most of my students who come to me, I'm the first person they're able to have spiritual discussions with. So it's great, the more and more of us that are available to freely express, the more that other people can feel comfortable and to be asking these questions. The scientist part of me also, is about like learning as much as possible, which is, what Kaz is doing, which is great. And I think, it's as long as, when we talk about the different heavens, I forget which heaven it is, where it talks about our wanting to develop our knowledge or wanting to communicate and learn more. So it's great that we are, tapping into those energies. And it's almost like tapping into those energies helps us to even be more aware of the level of expansion of our consciousness beyond just our physical body. So, thank you for talking through about Reiki, able to guide us to tap into these energies and to be able to ask for those understandings ourselves. And just from a scientific standpoint, just want to make clear that we are primates. So when talking about we come from primates, is that we are ourselves primates. But I get what you're saying, and it's that we all have the same biological ancestor, not that we come from one particular animal versus another. We have a general biological ancestor that we come from. So to keep that in mind in terms of the level to which our consciousness may have been, that creates endless possibilities.
Yes. Thank you, Kelly. Yeah. That's such a beautiful addition to this conversation. And yeah, the remembering, yes, we are primates. It is, we can see it in our genetic structure. So thank you. And Teresa, who's also a biologist, I see her. Yes. Thank you. Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. That was a really wonderful addition to this conversation.
Yeah, we could have been conscious as a blob just rolling around on the earth. The possibilities are so endless because
that was a good movie.
Evolution. Oh God, the two of them, the one in black and white from back when, and the one that was redone in the 90s, which I could have done without the color because it looked like snot. Every time I have a sinus infection, I think of that movie. I swear to God. I'm sorry.
This is what happens. I retired. Maybe I should go back to work. Quiet my brain a little,
Oh, thank you, Kaz. Well, Kaz, these are probably the questions that you've been wanting to explore your whole life, and you've just found a supportive circle to explore them. And that's a good thing.
Thank you. But I like being retired.
Yeah, it's good. All right. Well, Colleen, I know we had another question that was emailed in. How was that? I know we were talking about how we wanted to proceed with that one.
Yeah, I just, so we had an email sent in, and I'm just going to answer it generally about what happens when you have a very unexpected experience in a Reiki session that is outside of what you know about how Reiki works. It can be, sometimes those experiences can be even intimidating or scary, and what to do with that when that happens, and how to reconcile it all, because so often things do occur in a session that are outside of your belief system or experience. So I would have to start with that, with saying I definitely did not start out with the same belief systems I have today, that those have developed over time through Reiki sessions and the unexpected ones that show up. And sometimes they have been intimidating. Sometimes they have been the, like the meaning of the universe experience. Sometimes they've been very personally important and life-changing for me. And then sometimes they're ordinary and things that I feel like, oh, I think I understand that. So rather than the specifics of this question, is going to the generalization of what happens when something is very unexpected. In this case, with this question, it was unexpected and outside of this practitioner's experience or awareness of how Reiki can work, and with a specific client, and how Reiki worked for that specific client. The first thing is that it's specific to that client and not necessarily meaning something that will repeat or show up on a regular basis, but it does expand your awareness of how Reiki does the work, even though we don't even know what it's doing is possible. And so it reveals to us some of the possibilities that are outside of even anything we've ever thought of before. What I do when that happens is, in the moment, I do have my spiritual guides and my Reiki energies that I very clearly work with. I have a team. That's why I like working with spiritual guides, but you don't have to have a team. The Reiki energy is doing it. The first thing is to know that Reiki is doing the work and you are observing it. So even though in the moment you want to be able to do something about it, really what you're doing is observing how it's doing the work with that particular client. When I say I call in my team, it gives me security to know that I have those energies in place for myself and for my client. And then I do trust the Reiki energy to be working with that person in a way that maybe they don't understand in the moment, but they're going to understand as time goes on if they choose to explore more about the experience and whether that experience repeats. The experiences in what I would say sometimes where these feel like they're outside of our awareness of possibilities of how Reiki could do the work with a client are typically not going to repeat every session with that client. It can be a one-time experience. And I'll give you an example, and this isn't exactly like for like, but it's an example I was just sharing. In fact, when William Rand and I were teaching a 7-day class in Hana just last month, and I was reminiscing about a 7-day class. I think Joe, somebody was there. Oh, it was what we were talking about with Joe when we were up in the Nevele at a 7-day class, and he was there. And I was brand new with working with William, and I was nervous. And so I was being the very best assistant I could be. Like, I was on it. I was going to be professional. I was going to be dialed. I was like this, like, I am really good at being an assistant. So I get on the table because it's practice time, and I am not kidding you. It was Karuna Reiki. My body flopped up and down. I was having this huge experience. And in my mind, I'm like, not now, I'm the assistant. I'm not supposed to have this happen. And the intensity of it was almost like I felt like I could fall off the table. It's never happened to me again in that same way. And all I can do is trust that Reiki was helping me to get over myself, maybe. I don't know. I still don't know if I know in retrospect what it was about. I know it was part of my process. And I also have had occasionally where a client has had that kind of a reaction. And now what do I do as the practitioner? So as the practitioner, what I know is to allow the person their experience. If it gets too strong and dramatic, then I start bringing in the part of me that's like, take some deep breaths now, receive Reiki, and bring in that grounding energy of the Reiki energies. And also to help the person, because it can be uncomfortable for the person themselves. So that's only if it gets really dramatic. If otherwise, I just stay steady, doing what I'm doing, continue the session, confident that they're receiving what they need to receive. If it starts to get to where it's going to be like a really big experience and uncomfortable for them, kind of like you hear the guidance, like, I need to do something for this. You can also, that's when you come in and like, take some deep breaths, take some more deep breaths, bring yourself in, feel the light of the earth, allow the energy to ground. And you come in then with some directions to help that person get more stabilized. But most of all, to go back to, that's just an example, but most of all, to go back to the specifics of this question, keep an awareness of your experience with it. You can have a discussion with this client. It's okay to, just be authentic and say, this is not something I've experienced as a practitioner before. I usually do what I can to reassure the client that I do trust Reiki, to allow Reiki to come in and do the work, even though it's in a way that I didn't know about before or expect that it could do it that way. And then just continue on and trust that Reiki's handling the situation, and that client has the learning to do from that experience, because this particular client has some very definite psychic abilities. So it's also to bring that balance in for them, and also to place them on their journey of learning and experiencing their possibilities. So I think I'd like to answer it that way. And so I'm hoping that is beneficial for the question and how that question was asked. And so I think so. I think that's, and the reason I ask, I share about it in a more general way is because if I was specific about it, it really runs into some confidentiality that, wouldn't be public. Like, I would have maybe a more direct conversation directly, but when we're in this forum, we're very aware of people's confidentiality, both as the practitioner and as the client.
Okay. Well, are there any more questions from anybody here live, whether you want to ask it live or you want to put it in the chat? You can either direct message me, or you can either direct message me, or you can put it in the chat. Go ahead, Meg.
I do Reiki Usui, and I do Holy Fire too. And when I'm doing Reiki, how do I know which one I'm doing? Like, am I doing Usui, or am I doing Holy Fire, or am I doing both? Like, even if I'm giving Reiki, if I'm sending Reiki out, is it just both combined?
Yes. So, we have the specific techniques we use for Reiki. So, for instance, the Usui symbols and the Holy Fire symbol, and we have techniques that we can use to work with each of the energies. Also, they all work together, and they know how to do what they do, regardless of how we direct them. And really just through the example of what I just shared, that was certainly outside of the intention of this practitioner and their client. So Reiki does do the work the way it does the work. And we receive the attunements to the different symbols because it empowers us and strengthens our own personal channel. When we are letting the Reiki energies come through us, they come through however they know, what they know how to do for the circumstance with the client or with the people, let's say we're sending to a group of people or a world event. For instance, we just had the big earthquake in Japan. And I know that, there are world events happening all over, people in storms right now. We have colleagues in Ecuador and just talked to them, just did a podcast with one of them who just moved there. So we can send Reiki generally. A lot of times when we feel like we get a specific, add this symbol right now, and we feel like it's us thinking, I'm going to send this symbol right now, it's actually because we are being guided to the symbol to send. The Reiki energy is actually guiding us to send a specific energy within it. You can always send just as all Reiki go right now. You can make it that simple. I personally love working with each of the symbols to get to know them, how they work, why they work, and what they do. But that's my observation of them. By doing that, I'm not actually making them work because I've said, okay, I want this particular symbol now. They come in and I'm learning how to observe what they do. And the techniques that we use are beneficial because we're physical beings and we need physicality to actually, do the work and the techniques are helpful to get us there. And I still use all the techniques. I like Reiki on the fly also, and I like being able to call them all in at once also. But I also still use the techniques and tools because they work and they're fascinating, and I get to gain greater understanding of the energies and how they do what they do. So all of the ways that you feel guided in any moment, Meg, and over time, like I did not understand all the different symbols for years. Some of them I was even somewhat resistant to, particularly the distance symbol, because when I originally learned it, it was so strict that if I didn't do everything exactly right, I felt like I was going to get it wrong. So I was very careful with the distance symbol. I also was originally taught, this was before I studied with William, but I also was originally taught that the distance symbol was only ever used for distance Reiki. And then now I have learned so much more about how the distance symbol works and what it really is. And now some of the history that is coming out of Reiki through the evidence-based history of Reiki is that Usui Sensei only ever worked with the distance symbol, and the other Usui symbols came in after him through the second president of the Gakkai. So that is showing up as likely to be very true. We haven't actually seen with our own eyes the direct evidence of that, but Doi Sensei, who is kind of the major historian in Japan, he has a statement in one of his books stating that it was the second president of the Gakkai, the Japanese Gakkai, that brought in the mental emotional symbol and the power symbol. And then we know Mrs. Takata brought in the Usui, what we call the Usui master symbol, the DKM. And then Holy Fire came through William. And there are other lineages that work with other symbols too. So it's really just allowing the energy to come in and teach you and do it all the different ways that you occur to you to do, to see what you like and how it all works for you.
And will Reiki grow with me, or do I have to take the same classes all over again? Because my vibration is totally different than when I first started Reiki. Like when I first started Reiki, I was just getting clean and sober, and now I've been sober for 6 years. And so, do I have to start all over again on Reiki, or does it grow with me?
Well, first of all, congratulations on your 6 years. That is tremendous accomplishment and success in your life. So, and thank you for sharing that. You can do any of the above. So Reiki will also grow with you the way you need it to and the way it works for you. And then some people do feel called to take classes again. And you would be able to take the classes in whatever order you wanted to, if you wanted to retake any of them. So let's say you thought, well, I think I just am going to take the Reiki Master class again. And I want to review that, and I want to see what shows up now for me. You could do that without starting again with Reiki 1 and 2 and then the Master, because you already have the Master training. You can also do things like take the advanced Reiki trainings that, for instance, that we have or other people have, to see what calls to you. Some of that is going to depend on your life circumstances and what's available. And there are a lot of free resources that you can you can do, just like I know you join our distance Reiki share, and then people, Kim Cumbo and Lauren that joins us and Taylor that joins us also will put some of their free offerings and Reiki circles into the chat, and you can join those. But it really is whatever you feel guided to, Meg, and follow your guidance with it and follow your circumstances with it, and know that it's enough. Allow it to be enough how you need to do it and what works for you.
I haven't got the master yet. I'm a Holy Fire too, but I'm a Usui master teacher, and so but each sobriety date I do another level.
Oh, good for you. Well, you would probably really enjoy the Holy Fire Master class. It's very different than how the Usui teacher class is taught. There's a lot of different techniques. The ignitions and attunements are different, and you may really enjoy that energy. But again, follow your guidance and listen for what feels right for you.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. I'm glad you're here.
Okay, so next question from Andre is, I met a person who said, wondering about the confidentiality of this. So there's a lot of, I guess the question is what do you think about actively doing while in meditation? Is it a trap of the mind, or can it be a genuine spiritual practice?
I think you're okay to read the question, Robyn.
You think? Okay.
I do.
All right. I met a person who said that he was initiated by spirit and he is doing practices for many hours at a time. He is doing, in quotations, a lot in his practice, which he wouldn't reveal what it was. So all my experience is that you let go and spiritual energy is doing the work. So the main goal for me is to get out of the way, allow, and accept. So with his way is that he's actively doing things while he's in meditation. So do you think it's a trap of the mind or a genuine spiritual practice? I would like to add, and Colleen, I'm sure you have a perspective on this, but add that, there's a lot of different ways for spiritual practices, and a lot of different ways of doing things. So there is active meditation practices. They can be called that. There's a lot of different kinds of meditation practices. And then there are the meditation practices that you're talking about, where it is what you're trying to do is be completely out of the way. And then there are practices such as journeying, right? A shamanic journeying or a Reiki journeying, where it is an actually active practice where the intention is to go into that active exploration of your intentions, your questions, or if you're combining it with a Reiki session, then you are, doing the exploration through the Reiki energy. And then there are other spiritual practices where the energetic skills are coming from the practitioner. So outside of Reiki, where they are building up their life force, their energetic self, and then that part of them is doing the healing. So there's a lot of different spiritual practices. When we're talking about the Reiki energy, the thing to understand is that the Reiki energy is doing the work of the healing work. So you are getting further out of the way because it's not coming from your own perspective. You're not doing the healing work. You're allowing the Reiki energy to do the healing work. However, in certain practices, like I would say, even in Colleen, myself, Danny, or Teresa, those that are doing, using it, combining it with Reiki journey techniques. Some people combine it with other things, but I'll just use our experience with it. We are actively observing what the Reiki energy is doing. So there is a part of the skill, because you're combining it with journey techniques, this part of the skill is to actively observe what the Reiki energy is doing. So there are experiences, there are potential intentions, like let's say, like in a Holy Fire experience, you're intentionally going to the river of life for healing. So there is this kind of active component to it. However, it's the healing is still not coming from me. The Reiki energy is still doing all of the healing work. I'm just simply observing the type of healing work that the Reiki energy is doing. So when you're in a Reiki session, and I also have kind of real no opinion about the healing that it's doing, other than what's inside my scope of practice, right? So when I am doing a Reiki session, I am simply just observing, like, let's say if I'm doing a straight Reiki session, there might be cords and connectors that are released. There's no insight into that. I'm not trying to observe what's happening. That's just, I'm in silence and I'm doing kind of that traditional straight Reiki session. If I'm combining it with a journey skill, I might be able to observe the fact that there is a cord or connector that's being released and communicate that to the client. However, it's still the Reiki energy that is doing that work, that is doing that releasing work. I'm not doing that releasing work. I'm just allowing the Reiki energy to flow through me and then communicating to the client what the Reiki energy is doing. And so, Andre, I see that you got kind of cut off. I was answering your questions, so you may want to come back to the recording when it comes out, so that you can kind of hear the full answer. Also, having said all of that, just getting out of the way and allowing the Reiki energy to do the work, or in the meditative processes or techniques that you have been taught, all of them are doing the work. So if that is your style of practice, that's what you're called to. That is is equally as powerful as anything else. It's just different styles and just different techniques.
Yeah, so everything Robyn just said, and people have all different ways of receiving spiritual energies. One of the things that I've observed, and of course, as you know, I'm one who has really received extensive training by skilled teachers, and I like that for myself. I think for me, it all comes down to what is the energy you're connected with, where does it come from, and what is the nature of the energy. How are you receiving it, connecting to it, and delivering it? So, there are lots of people who have this experience without taking a class or specifically choosing one modality like Reiki, for instance. For myself, if I am working with a practitioner, I would personally want to know more about the energy if they were going to be a practitioner on me, and where it came from, what the nature of it is. But at the same time, I definitely, want to honor other people's experience. I'm just talking about for myself that I would personally feel more comfortable having a better understanding of what the energy is, how it works, where it comes from, and what the nature of the energy itself is. There are so many different spiritual energies, and a lot of times people think of spiritual energy as it's all one energy, but it really isn't. And in all of my experiences through the various trainings that I've had, for instance, if I'm working in the fairy realms, that's very different than if I'm working in the ancestor realms, unless I'm working with ancestor fairies. So for instance, that's just a really general example that they're different spiritual energies. And I would want to know who a person is working with, where it came from, and the understanding of the nature of the energy itself before I had them work on me, but at the same time, honoring their experience. So it's a little bit of a tricky one because I don't want to judge somebody else's experience.
And the chat he was saying, he's just talking all the time about fixing everything on earth, and Spirit gave him that task. Well, heard that before. Good luck. Sorry to be brash about it. Not to invalidate your experience. Like Colleen said, hopefully somebody comes along and is able to do that. But that is something that we find in spirituality a lot, is this idea of the kind of hero complex that we need to heal, of being the chosen one. It's a huge burden. And I'll tell you what, it puts a lot of responsibility of all the earth's problems on your shoulder. I think many of us that get called into this work have that wanting to. Of course, I want to fix everything in the earth. Of course, if we could live in this idea where there is none of the earth's problems that we have, so many of us want that, right? And so it's not I like the intention behind it, absolutely, but we're so raised with this idea of the hero complex, of the chosen one, that it kind of gets ingrained into us through media, through culturally created self. And it's one of those things that is really helpful to heal, because it does put this major responsibility onto our shoulders. But what we can do is what we can do, right? We can do what we can do as one person. We can be kind to people. We can send Reiki to things. We can, try to be a part of our own little ripple effect, and maybe throughout that matters, right? That counts and that matters, or just healing ourselves from our different experiences and our lifetime, and that matters. And so, if we can just do that, that ripple effect does eventually help things. It does eventually make a difference. And so, I see this actually quite commonly, probably because I had to go through my own healing journey with that idea of this kind of hero complex, this one chosen one complex with it. And so I actually do have quite a few clients that go through that same process and that same journey. And, there's the other side to that then it does make you feel responsible for all the earth's problems. And frankly, unless you're the Messiah or whatever, it's probably not that, it's probably not your journey this lifetime. I asked about that, and it said you didn't come to this life to be an ascended master this time, so you can just let that go. It's like, oh, I never thought about it. And they're like, if you were, you'd probably know by now. So okay, you're 40 now. You'd probably know by this point.
You'd have been born into different circumstances.
You would have been born into different circumstances. Exactly.
Well, I have to say actually that I would say that I grew up thinking I could heal the earth and fix things. And also probably because of my family of origin, kind of being the fixer in the family, the peacemaker in the family. And then part of that just being my nature. And what happened is I developed into an overgiver, and it blocked my ability to receive. And that responsibility that Robyn is explaining, I just thought, man, I can fix it all. And I was trying to fix things that people didn't ask me to fix. It's like, I can fix it. I'll do it. I can do it. And so it's actually one of those areas that I think for me, it took me years to do some healing. I just talked about this with Jay Jackson. We just did a podcast the other day that'll be released in February about Reiki and crystals. And I talked about how I had this ordinary street rock, and talk about belief systems. I had no idea this could happen. And I was walking, Robyn, on the track by your house, and I was walking on the track, and all of a sudden this just rock, like this big, size of a quarter, ordinary street rock, yells at me, "Stop!" I'm like, oh, okay. And I picked it up, and it said, "You realize you carry a cart around you, and that you are burdened by this cart. You have this huge harness on you in order to carry the cart, and you have people in it and issues in it that have no agreement about how long they're going to be there, when they got in, when they're supposed to get out, all of these things." And so I was shown this image of a cart. And then through, Kim isn't here today, but Kim Cumbo also teaches soul collage. And I was shown in one of my soul collage cards how carrying this cart was breaking my back. And I actually had a back injury at the time, and was shown not only did people get in my cart without my permission, I actually would go and pick people up and put them in my cart, and sometimes without their permission. So it turned out to be like this lifetime major healing experience where I had to really learn how to not try to fix everything. And as you can see, I'm here because we so genuinely want to contribute to wellness in the world. But as you can also hear, we always talk about how Reiki can help you do that in your life. And that's what we can do, is show how Reiki can do that rather than me do it, how Reiki can do that for you, with you in your life. And then, of course, you have, I have my loved ones, and there are certain things that are my responsibility to stay in support. But what happened with it, here's the real truth of it. I'll have to pull the writings of this card out. It showed me that it was actually a control issue. And wanting to fix everything was the way I thought I could control it all. And that was when it finally sunk in that instead of pulling people behind me my way, let them walk beside me their way. And it was like at the end of the way this was written out in my, it was automatic writing, and the way it was written out was, and in truth, this is your way of trying to control your world. And so once I heard that, it broke open that awareness of just letting go. And of course, that's the nature of Reiki energy, is that it'll flow through us. And that was when everything changed for me, is when I stopped using my own life force to try to fix everything, letting the Reiki energy come through to do that work and let it do the work rather than my life force. Yeah. That, Kaz, you're right. That rock was, I don't think I kept it, because outside in that moment, it was like, what? It's like, this is just this little rock and it's screaming at me on my walk. And, fortunately, I was open to hear it and had enough kind of openness and receptivity to let it show me this and then set me on that journey. So we're talking, it was like years long of understanding that part of myself. And sometimes what I know is that I used to look for things that I could go and fix. And so, of course, they always showed up that I could go and do. And now finally, there are things that I look and I think, I can't fix that. But what I can do is contribute to wellness in these ways. And so, I've done all kinds of activism, political activism. That wasn't my area. I've done all kinds of things, to contribute wellness. And for me, what I found is kind of just what we're doing here today, gathering in a safe place to have these discussions, to empower other people to find their way. The animal Reiki now contributes to the wellness in the natural world and with the animals. And that to me is like a huge gift that we were able to give through these trainings and these courses. And so that's what I've focused on now. But back to the specifics of what you were talking about with somebody else, I think we just have to let people go through their own practices and allow that that's what's true for them, and not try to fix that. It's like, but like I say, I have my own discernment about when I have people work on me with their energies. I'm pretty specific about that I know where their energies are coming from and how they got there and what their skills are. So, and mostly people are working with Reiki. I just trust the Reiki energy too. And Taylor and Sheila, a bunch of you are saying how important it is to understand this part of it. Well, because we do care deeply. I know I cared deeply as a child. This was not something that, I didn't have naturally. It was always something that was there. I always cared about trying to heal the animals and all the poor bugs I was trying to heal. It's like, just here, I'll take care of you. Speaking of putting them in my cart, putting them in a jar, things like that. But I always cared deeply. I cared deeply. I remember it distinctly as a child, as a teenager, as an adult. Always cared deeply. I just finally found a path that works for me, that is very safe and beautiful, and where the energy is doing the work and it doesn't deplete me. Because the other ways really did deplete me. And it didn't work. Well, I shouldn't say that. A lot of the things that I did work. They did make a difference. All right.
All right. Well, I think it's time to wrap up.
All right.
So thank you all so much for being here live. For those of you that email your questions in, thank you. And, we have our free distance Reiki share on Tuesday mornings at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. You're always welcome to join that. Our list of classes is on our website, and we hope to see you there. All right. Lots of love to everyone. Thank you.
Yeah.